This week on the Squatchers Lounge podcast, David and the Reverend Jeff circle back on a topic that none of you heard. Or if you stuck through it and listened to it anyway, God bless you. Here we have the Redux on the Vietnam rock ape, one of our favorite cryptids from around the world. And why is that, you ask? Well, you'll just have to stay tuned to find out and to hear us butcher the traditional Vietnamese language. And now I'll turn it over to the man who tries to pronounce all the sequential NGs and U's, the Reverend Jeff Kelly.
Woo! Welcome, everybody, to the Squatchers Lounge podcast. That's right. I am your host, the Reverend Jeff Kelly, and it is redo of the rock apes of Vietnam. Boy, do I have some stories to tell about that. With me, as always, is the doctor, David Battorf, pseudo-scientist. How you doing there, buddy?
Pseudoscience. That's what I'm doing.
Pseudoscience.
Sitting here just doing pseudoscience. I don't even know how to do that. But it's sure is sciencey.
That's right. That's all that matters to get your honorary DPS from the Squatchers Lounge is just make it sciencey. And we're getting all geared up for the trip next week. And I've got some information about that later on. But as always, it is time to do the news, and we're going to pray that we don't get the little white box that Google likes to throw at us every once in a while. But even if we do, we're still going to suffer through it. No, I think we're good this week. Look at that. Party on. And that's not the first story we're talking about. First story we're talking about is this poor sucker. A bear got all burned up in the wildfires last year. And of course, the animal rescuers, we got to save it. We got to patch it all up. We got to make it better so we can release it back into the wild like 2 months before hunting season. Yay, the Department of Fish and Game. What are you thinking, David?
Well, I do. I love the whole concept and the feel goodness and you know, taking a bear cub and, you know, rehabilitating it and releasing it back into the wild. But they did it right before bear season.
Yeah, I mean, and no offense, guys, it's not like the bears are a dwindling supply of them. If the animal was really that severely burnt that it needed that much rehabilitation, you know, euthanasia was probably the right course of action. But hey, we're on the hippie West Coast and everybody's got to let everything live. So yay, Mr. Bear, you can go out and kill other animals now.
Yep.
Yippers. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. I just it is a good feel good story, and I understand why they're promoting it, and I understand why conservation is important. But at the same time, you released it right before bear season. How dick are you gonna feel if you shoot this bear?
You know, as a hunter, I'm not looking for the collar. I'm looking to shoot the bear. Now, this guy's little, so he's probably got a couple of years to live with that collar around his neck.
Yeah.
But I would feel like absolute crap as a hunter if I cracked a shot through the heart of a bear wearing a collar. And no, you're not gonna get arrested. You just report it. You turn in the collar to Fish and Game, and everything's honky dory. It's not the end of the world, but right before hunting season, go figure. And next up, we have, hey, dude, this was cool. Rare.us. These animals see themselves in the mirror for the very first time, dude. It was seriously interesting, but of course, the video is now not going to show up in my feed for some strange reason. But basically, the animals walk up, they put up a shatterproof mirror in the animal's natural environment and just left it out there and put a video camera on it. And the gorilla walks up to it. And of course, it's a silverback. So he's checking it out left and right. And then he charges at it and it realizes it doesn't run. And, you know, it takes a matter of time for these animals to realize what's actually going on. And I guess the intelligence level is measured in the amount of time it takes for them to recognize that that's them in the mirror. Is that the way that works?
That's how part of the mirror test works. Like, not the mirror test as far as like recognition of self, you know, like the dot test and all that other stuff. But the amount of time is key, because there's a lot of animals that will eventually like calm down and realize that that's just a mirror image of themselves, whether or not they see self as a, you know, as a psychological term. My
Chihuahua's been barking at himself in the glass windows now for 3 years.
Yep. So yeah, there's different measures like anything else, and that's just one of them. But it's interesting to watch, you know, if you can actually do it. But it does take not very long for the gorillas probably to realize, oh wait, that's just me.
Yeah, that's just me in there. That's not some other scary monster. But you can check that out at rare.us and just search for Wild Animals React. And that's how I found it. Anyhow, next up, IFL Science, as we always do. Newly discovered marsupial will literally have sex until it disintegrates. Hey, dude, my kind of mammal. What are you thinking, dude? It's going to hump itself to death?
Let's hear it from marsupials. I mean, is there a mammal that can really hold a torch to this? Self-destruction through fornication? Come on.
Now, you know what's really funny is the marsupials have actually been quite on the uprise of discovery here lately. It seems like every year we're finding in the mammals, we're finding more marsupials than anything else. Is it this that they're reclassifying animals into the marsupial world because they're studying them more, or is it just are they actually evolving and becoming new marsupials?
I think it's because it's really hard to get a lot of places in Australia, and that might not be high on our priority list of areas to study, just because it is kind of, I mean, there's a lot of wild out there, and a lot of it's dry and uninhabitable, and a lot of these marsupials, like the small, rodent, probably underground-ish looking thing, probably, this is probably a dry area dweller, and we just don't have the time and resources to really look at those areas a lot. I didn't.
The male of the species lives for about a year and go out with a bang. Dude, could you imagine just pow? You just like blow into dust.
Hashtag worth it.
Worth it. That's right. So you can check that out at IFL Science. Live Science facts about apes. This came out on the 29th of May. Apes are humanity's closest living relatives. In fact, people are apes. Humans are about 98% of their DNA with chimpanzees. The non-human types of apes are divided into two groups of great apes: gorillas, bonobos, chimpanzees, and orangutans, and lesser apes like gibbons, siamangs, baboons, lemurs. Those are all still on the ape line and still share like 94% of the DNA with us, all the way down to the little lemur ape.
Well, not the lemurs. No, not at all.
No, not the lemurs. I'm thinking, what's the other thing? Daggum, not the siamang, but the
Well, there's a few types of gibbons along
that's the one I'm looking at.
The Hylobates line, versus the hominoid.
The gibbon line still shares like 90% of our DNA, so they're still like cousins.
Yeah,
but we're looking for that brother and sister DNA like the chimps and the bonobos have.
Or even closer, so we're this is actually a good read if you go to Live Science and look at facts about apes, and it'll actually break down the phylogeny like down below and how they separate these things, and talks about your basic habits. There's link outs to more information on all this stuff, and this family group, especially
mountain gorilla.
Yeah, there's probably nothing cuter than a baby mountain gorilla with the hair sticking straight up like that. But
what you doing that, fool?
So this, it's like really, I don't know, like there's so much information that we can extrapolate and try to assume for Sasquatch based on this is what all the apes, including us, do, and this is a great starting point, and link out and start to research from there on the things that you think might be important. But yeah, it breaks down the entire thing, and the lesser apes, those Hylobates, have more diverse species and than any of the ape genus that we have up there. So anyway, yeah, and definitely check it out, and it'll break it down for you in really simple.
And the reason that we're still looking for this stuff is because at any given time in Earth's life before now, there has always been more than one upright walking humanoid type creature on this planet. Right now, we haven't discovered any other that are like us, but that's not to say that there aren't. And it would be an oddity for us to be the only ones at this point in life's evolution. So that's why we search for this kind of stuff.
Especially since it would seem as though our body type and our body plan and the even like an evolutionary path that kind of like was just in tandem to ours, like our cousins and other things like that. It's hard to believe that
there nothing else could have survived if we flourished the way that we did, and not just because of our brains, because we also know that there were all these other things that left too. Our brains helped us to take hold, but wave after wave after wave of upright hominin coming out of Africa, and the amount of time that it actually takes to migrate through generations from one area to another, you're looking at tens of thousands of years, and we have millions of years to work with here. Like 1.8 at the minimum, and like 3.5 at the maximum for a bipedal ape, right? So it seems ridiculous that there can't be something else out there that doesn't have this gorilla and chimpanzee body plan.
Exactly. So that's what we're talking about, people. Next up, Arizona's Unexplained.blogspot.com. Bigfoot and other cryptids sense electromagnetic fields. Now, that's not far-fetched. There are animals out there, and they can humans can sense electromagnetic fields, especially electromagnetic discharge from electrical poles. People living underneath power lines, talk about a feeling of dread, and a lot of hauntings are due to EMF. So I don't know why it would be all that, real, great of a discovery to find out that other types of animals would also be sensitive to electromagnetic fields.
So the only interesting thing about so we loosely document and there's scientific studies, mostly mostly based on conjecture, and not a lot of there's probably some neuroscience data, but mostly just based on asking somebody how they're feeling in certain scenarios and exposing them to electromagnetic frequencies. But if you imagine that we're constantly bombarded with this in modern life, like now, somebody like me, I am actually pretty sensitive. I can't be under high tension power lines for too long without feeling agitated. I don't get the fear thing. I just get agitated. I feel I get angry. It's like back when I was smoking cigarettes. It's like I needed a cigarette or something. Like there was an agitation that happened, and I'd never, and we'd move away from that high tension power line, and I'd feel better. Very interesting. But it takes that amount of energy to affect a person. Now, something in the wild, maybe, if there was a car battery hooked up to a really old and inefficient incandescent light bulb or something like that, maybe that sort of thing would trigger.
But it's not picking up your digital recorder batteries.
I don't think that it's picking up that low of a background of,
unless you were laying on it. I mean, if you were laying right next to it, something might detect that there's an electromagnetic field there, but I don't think it's going to be enough to disturb anything.
So and these other animals that they're talking about being attuned to the electromagnetic field of the planet, of the Earth.
Well, the cows orientate themselves north-south.
There's a lot of animals that are able to do that, but you're looking at like the most gigantic and unimaginable power plant of molten iron undulating underneath the Earth's crust. Right. You can't even say that your digital camera has any effect on that magnetic field.
No, not whatsoever. That's very true.
We live upon a very gigantic magnet, and thank goodness we do, or else we'd all have our skin stripped away by the energy from the sun. So it's very important that we sit on that magnet.
Indeed it is. But you can check that one out at Arizona Unexplained.blogspot.com. We got this one coming through the lounge this week. 10 Bigfoot type cryptids you may not know about. The European wild men. Now, we've been talking about doing a show on the European wild men because you can't really do a show on one individual one. Maybe the brain, which is
wild men without women. Mm-hmm.
Which is actually tonight's show, the rock apes, the batatut, or widget. Yeah, I can't pronounce any of those things. I'm sorry how I slaughtered it. The Laocoon of Scottish wild men. The Yaren, of course. Pakistan's no, that's not right. Barmanu. Yeah, we can take a look into that one a little bit closer. The Alma of Mongolia, of course, we talked about. We talked about. No, we didn't. This is Bigfoot of Alaska, and I still can't pronounce that word. We talked about that tonight.
Yeah.
The Neteawu. Now the Neteawu sounds like a native word of some sort, but we'll definitely be talking about one of those. The Honey Island swamp monster. Everybody's heard of the Honey Island swamp monster. It was a hoax. Please, people. Siberia's Choo Choo Naha. We're going to look into that one because Siberia is a cool place, and it actually kind of leads into the gateway to the Americas. So you can check that one out at listverse.com and just search for 10 Bigfoot, and it will pop up for you.
Yeah, we already have those written down. We were going to do a bunch of those, but yeah, the Siberian one definitely, that was a name that I don't think came up in our original searches. So we'll definitely check that one out as well as some others and kind of lump them together and do Siberia because
I'll work on pronouncing the names better. I'm sorry, people.
Meh.
Naha. Okay. Moving on, dude. Bigfoot is so hot. Even AutoZone is getting into the Bigfoot hunt and the Bigfoot everything. What is the deal, dude? They got a big long cartoon commercial online about Bigfoot driving the country. What, dude? Seriously?
Yep.
AutoZone, you got nothing better to do. You can't get your own mascot.
Well, apparently they're familiar with at least the title of Cliff Barrickman's Bigfoot Road Trip because they just totally flipped it and went with it.
Yeah, no joke whatsoever. That's over at the AutoZone Facebook page. And then what do you do if you see a bear in the woods? You know, we David and I were talking about this before the show. It's real important that people kind of pay attention to what's going on around you this time of year. We're about to embark on a 4-day expedition to bear country where there's bear poop and bear signs and bear scratches, and we know there's going to be bears. But these are black bears. Black bears are different than brown bears. We don't live where there's brown bears. Why? Because most people are smart that they don't live where there's brown bears. So dealing with a black bear is different. You just get loud, get big, get angry, and they usually take off running. If not, shoot it.
Well, there is that. And so the one of the important things that they talk about, like anything else, act big, act loud. If that doesn't work, calmly remove yourself from the area, and make sure you're not being followed. So that goes for black bears, brown bears, camels, anything, like any large mammals that are dangerous. Moose for sure. You slowly walk.
Throw a rock at a black bear, but I wouldn't suggest throwing a rock at a brown bear.
Well, so yeah, black bears are typically skittish, and here's why they make this distinction. If a bear charges you, that's not an attack. A bear doesn't attack you until it makes contact or until it's going to make contact, right? Bears will charge, and that's when you soil yourself. That's just how it works.
Well, it works. That's right.
You pee a little bit, and then so what do you do if you've identified it's a brown bear and it attacks you? What you do is you lay down, you cover the back of your head,
and you kiss your ass goodbye.
Yeah, well, and you play dead and you act submissive because a brown bear is typically doing that as a territorial display, as a dominance display, and all they're going to do is once you submit, that there's always a potential that it's going to go further than that, but your physical strength is not going to do any difference. So the best thing that you can do is just lay down and cover the important parts, your brainstem, right?
Yeah.
So that if there is any mauling, that it mauls your hands and arms, so
because no one needs those.
Yeah, well, but you don't need them if you don't have a neck. So but basically that's the whole concept of why they say play dead around bears. Now, black bears are different. Black bears are skittish. They're not territorial with humans regularly. They may bluff charge. They may do what bears do. However, if a black bear tries to jump on you or actually it physically attacks you, it's doing so out of a need for food, and so you're supposed to fight like hell. You're supposed to you're supposed to grab rocks, grab something hard, and aim for the eyes, and fight your way out of that situation.
Once it starts to eat you, there's no going back. You got to fight for your life at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times, like David said, when you're rolled up in a ball, they'll come over, they'll sniff at you, they'll move you a little bit, and then they'll walk off. But if they're eating at you, it's because they're hungry, and if they've already taken a bite out of you, the only thing you can do is fight for your life at that point.
Yep. And the concept is that you're not going to outrun a bear. So you have to fight.
I don't have to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun my fat friend.
that too. But yeah, so I mean, those are really important things in the event of an attack. But the most important things are to prevent the attack.
That's right. Be aware of your surroundings.
Be aware of your surroundings. Make noise. Talk. Wear a bear bell. Sit. If you're by yourself, and being by yourself in bear country is maybe not the best decision. But if you're by yourself, sing or do something, to make noise. You have to let them know that you're in the area, first and foremost. And secondly, if you come across a bear, is to remove yourself from that situation calmly and safely. And if they come at you, yes, you act big, you try to exert yourself, not against the grizzly bear, against the black bear. Against the grizzly bear, you just keep moving away. And if it keeps coming, you just soil yourself and lay down.
Yep, soil yourself. Fall to the ground and pray to God that he doesn't eat you. Yeah.
And that's good enough that you submitted to the whatever display they're doing. But typically bears don't want to be around people. That's the thing. A bear will ignore people. If a bear is used to pilfering garbage or pilfering campsites or pilfering, there's easy food available all the time. They might come in and check out for easy food, but they still don't want to deal with people proper, and they don't want to deal with dogs proper, and they don't like the domestic animals, us being included in a domesticated animal, right? They don't like that. So that's just something to be aware of, that these situations are so few and far between, but it's good to know what to do in case of an attack.
Exactly. And you can check it out at the NewYorker.com. What are you to do if you see a bear? That's the one that I was talking about, and it was kind of a funny little humorous article. Anyhow, the very last thing's kind of sad. Life-saving chimps are abandoned on an island to die. Now, this is one of the things that David and I have been really kind of paying attention to as the non-human rights things are falling into place and these animals are being released from their cages and no longer being tested on what's going to happen to them. Right currently now, the United States is looking for like homes for 1,500 of these upper primates to, these upper apes to house. These guys were just dropped off on an ape and says, so long, and thanks for all the fish in Liberia.
So what this is this is not that they were forced to let them go. The New York Blood Center ran out of funding because this is not a popular thing anymore. And so what they do is turn them over to the community. But that's, where like the question is, and what people keep bringing up is, wherein lies the responsibility with the organization who has used these chimps these chimps have beat multiple letters of hepatitis for us. They've done amazing things for us. They've made a ton of money for the people who run the New York Blood Center, right, in Liberia. Where is the thanks? Where is the aftercare? Where was that in the budget when you were taking donations to do this research? Where was the aftercare? And really, chimpanzees can live for 50 years. You have to think about this. Either you planned on euthanizing them at all, and then now it's just not a popular idea, so you're just going to drop them on an island and say, all right, you villagers got to take care of them now. That's not fair. No, that's not fair to the villagers. It's not fair to the chimpanzees. So the interesting thing is that this lost funding, probably because this exact scenario that people are trying to avoid is gaining traction So that's why this happened. It's a really weird, circular effect. And I think that hopefully Jane Goodall has been all over this, and the Non-Human Rights Project has been all over this. So it'll be interesting to see what is the next step. Where do we take that sort of a concept? And I'm all for, like, research is research, and I understand that there are great analogs, and there's a very fine gray fuzzy line between the humans and these non-human apes, but you still have to think about the aftercare. You still have to follow the plan all the way through, and that's where I think that the New York Blood Center really fell short. And once they ran out of funding, they just pulled the plug and dumped.
Nobody cares. Yep.
Okay. Dumped a bunch of chimps with hepatitis on an island.
Yeah. Said,
and,
here you go,
and,
Mr.
and just said, I know, Liberia, you've been having trouble with a little bit of Ebola and stuff like that, but how about some human hepatitis all over this island going into the water too? Thanks for that. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, the rant over. Thanks for letting me get that out on air.
So long, and thanks for all the fish. Well, it's time for our tip of the week. That's if I can find it. And now it's time for Rules to Squatch By with your old pal Wes.
Number 48. Write out your questions ahead of time before you interview a witness. Be sure to ask the hard questions like, did Bigfoot mind speak in English? Is Matt Knapp ever going to return to the 40 and slip? Did Bigfoot come out of Adam Davis's portal? Is Bob Gimlin a reptilian? Are you batshit crazy? Come check out my recent work and my art for sale at weslosner.com. Stay squatchy, my friends.
This is Matt Knapp, and you're watching the Squatchers Lounge, the #1 Bigfoot podcast.
Oh, did you hear that? Somebody else said it besides us. Can you imagine the #1 Bigfoot webcast on the galaxy? Oh,
how much did you pay him for that?
Oh, dude, that's an undisclosed amount and something we are not going to be talking about. But tonight we're talking about rock apes.
And now for tonight's topic.
Hey, look at that. I even remembered the bumper. That's right. Now, we tried to talk about rock apes a couple of weeks ago, and that didn't work out so good for y'all because we had a really awesome discussion about it. But David's going to take us into the place where the rock apes come from, and it's basically the jungle basin of Asia. Is that correct?
That is correct. And as always with this whole cryptids from around the world business, I like to go to the world. So Vietnam rock apes are mostly found in this mountainous region that's like right around the South China Sea area here, and where they're saying that basically this whole like Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos area, this high and deeply forested area, not this basically drainage delta area, is where we're finding these rock apes. And one of the interesting things is if you zoom out a little bit, if I'm very careful here, you can actually see how this relates to the other cryptids that we've been talking about. There's this Malaysia, Borneo, and then orang pendek down in this area here. Wow, my scroll button's really giving me trouble today. Up in India, here we have like the Bhutan area, and looking for Yeti and some of these other things, and in India, and wow, look at this. There's this dry spot, and there's this big mountain chain called the Himalayas, and then this drainage area. All of this mountain goodness comes right down through here. What Jeff and I noticed in this last episode is this area is Eurasia's Florida.
Yeah, it's the freshwater drainage for the continent.
It's where the east side of this continent drains down out of the high areas and just creates this great upwelling. It's a delta that's built up over millions and millions of years, and it creates just a nutrient rich, flourishing, kind of swampy, muddy, but really great biome to live in it for almost anything. But it goes right up into if you're talking about the Yeren and you're talking about these other things up in China here, this is a really great.
It's that green belt that we're always looking for. It's where the only real habitable spaces are left in the wild are along those green belts, and where something could have evolved right alongside the human and still be out there.
Absolutely. And this whole area, as it's been changing, you can see that there is a very large continent area, the very large area that could have been exposed on many different occasions, where these early hominins and apes, and why do we have gibbons here and here? Well, it's because they once were throughout here. Very important things. And if you look at geology and you look at the animals and their diversity, the one thing that we still have trouble with, when we brought up in our Yowie episode, is there's this defined cutoff here that looks like you could get through there, but no, this is marsupials, and then we have mammals. So there's a very distinct differentiation between here, that makes the Yowie not impossible, but difficult. Where this area looks like, if you were going to imagine, just by looking at this, where the cryptids, the crypto hominids, if you like Bigfoot and you like the Pacific Northwest and you like something that's going to live in the forest, this and in the mountains, this is the exact areas where you think that they should be, and this is exactly where we see them in the cryptozoological world. And we'll get up here to Siberia later, because this is pretty badass.
Absolutely.
In Alaska. Whoa.
Alaska, I can see Russia from my house. So basically what we're talking about is the fact that the villagers, both armies, both the North Vietnamese army, the South Vietnamese army, and the United States Army, all had stories of these wild-like men that would throw rocks from different areas. Now, they weren't traveling in troops. They weren't like, little bands of Viet Cong coming out and, throwing rocks with slings like David and Goliath. These were literally descriptions of 5 to 6 foot tall, hair-covered, bipedal monsters. Could you imagine being a Vietnam soldier just in a place that isn't yours, creeping through the jungle, and all of a sudden one of these things hops up on just friggin' slings down a giant friggin' rock at you?
So the most important thing about this is this biped that's 5 feet tall. And if we were to go back to that facts about apes, you'd realize that the orangutans, even large male orangutans, they're well under 5 feet in stature. So even though they're not, at the time, we didn't think orangutans lived there. Even a cousin, it seems almost impossible that they could be of that same size and stature or larger. I mean, Gigantopithecus lived down in that area probably at some point. Well, it was more northerly, a form of Gigantopithecus, not Blackie, the one that everybody loves, didn't live down in that area. But so what could they be seeing aside from a 5 foot biped? Like this is something that's more contemporary. This is something that's really interesting, could blow your mind. It's not a gibbon.
No, definitely not a gibbon if it's 5 foot tall and bipedal, that's for sure. It's described as being approximately 1.8 meters, 6 foot tall, covered with hair, except in the knees, the soles of the feet, and the hands and the face, just like many other apes. The hair ranges in color from gray to brown to black. The creature walks on 2 legs and has been reported both solitary and moving in small groups. The creature is most often sighted foraging for food, from fruits and leaves to langurs and even flying foxes. And if you don't know what a flying fox is, Jesus, those things will kill you. That thing's like a flying dog. They're huge. In Borneo, witnesses describe it as 4 feet tall, very aggressive, occasionally killing humans and tearing out their livers.
Tearing out their livers, eh?
Yeah. Now there's a book, in the book, Very Crazy GI, Strange But True Stories from Vietnam by Craig last name Craig, first name PJ, maybe not, I don't know. PJ Jorgensen relates a sighting as such a creature of a team of U.S. soldiers, the men referred to as a rock ape, reporting it to be small in stature, about 5 feet tall, and having a reddish tinge to its fur. 2 Ngorons were reportedly captured by tribesmen near Dak Lak province in 1971. In 1974, a North Vietnamese general, Hong Minh Thao, requested an expedition to find evidence of the creatures, but was unsuccessful. Of course, footprints have been found. Professor Tran Hong Viet, I can't pronounce the university, I'm sorry, a researcher of the rock ape, reported in 1982 of finding similar footprints of those of McKinnon in 1970, measuring 28 by 16 centimeters, of which he made casts. He's been making an extensive post-war inventory of natural resources, and while collecting specimens near Cho Mo Ray in Sa Tai district, he came across the prints, and a photo of those prints are available online. So that's what they're basically talking about, the rock ape. Could you imagine that, dude? I still couldn't imagine a little group of these bastards coming through with rocks, just whoa.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about you know, a lot of where this lore comes from are these GI stories from this book and subsequent after that. You know, and Monster Quest did a bunch of exposés. There was a helicopter pilot who saw one in a tree. It was much bigger than they were used to seeing gibbons. They thought it was a person. They got close, and it wasn't a person at all, and it was covered in hair. And you know, so very interesting things. They kind of watched it for a minute, and then it fled down the tree, and then they moved on, and because they were on a helicopter sortie, and you got to get going, right? So, but the interesting thing about those books and those stories, you know, Monster Quest notwithstanding, because of course we're all interested in that now. But these are people who are giving these stories, not thinking about Bigfoot. It's not a Bigfoot book. That book was not about Bigfoot. That book was about weird,
crazy stories that happened in Vietnam.
Yeah, crazy stories in Vietnam. And so it had nothing to do with Bigfoot or cryptid hominids, but this is something that appeared in several different publications and over the years, and it keeps coming back up. And I think it's a very interesting. It's harder for me to dismiss than some other cryptid hominins, like I say, if we go from one to the other to the other to the other, it's kind of connecting the dots. Like, okay, well, this is where they should be next. If we're going southeast, that's where they should be next, and that makes sense to me. And that's why that's really one of my favorite cryptid hominins. Like, you can't have the Yeren, you can't have the Yeti without having this Vietnamese rock ape. It's perfect.
Exactly, and I'm really gonna Wes is killing me with pictures of cooked bacon, so I'm gonna do something that's really gonna make him mad. Rock ape. Anyhow, yeah, dude. I mean, could you imagine in the Congo, the stories of the Billy ape were around for decades before the rock ape stories were around as well. The villagers in the Congo didn't know what the Billy ape was. They called it a forest man just because it was on 2 feet a lot. So is that the type of thing that's happening here? Is this another kind of lost ape possibly that's in the jungles down there that we just haven't found, that move around so much like the Billy apes do that we can't find them? Or is it a feral human? And I know people don't like that term, but there are such a thing as feral humans. Now, you can't determine a feral human by DNA, but there are people who shut off society or go crazy and just go live in the wild. That would make them a feral human, would it not?
It would. However, it does not make them grow hair.
That is very true.
Yeah. So for all of those Gigantopithecus folks that really love Gigantopithecus blackie as the North American Sasquatch, as something that was that large, a 5-foot Gigantopithecus is a little bit on the upper range of what you would see for a non-blackie Gigantopithecus species. But this area and these things, the Gigantopithecus is a great model for Asia. It's a terrible model for Siberia, and it's a terrible model for the United States, in my pseudoscientist opinion.
Pseudoscience, doctorate.
I've gone to a lot of years of pseudoscience school for this.
That's right.
But so that analog doesn't work north of South China, right? But that could be a really good option, a relic species of Gigantopithecus, not Blackie, but another species of Gigantopithecus, supposedly pongid red apes related to orangutans, but not orangutans, terrestrial, ground dwelling. Whether bipedalism was better suited for them than it was gorillas and chimpanzees, we'll never know until we pull one out of the woods or actually find a reasonable fossil of a Gigantopithecus.
Yeah, no lie, not just a jawbone and a cap.
Yeah, and some inferred Sasquatch skulls based upon that. I think this is a really fascinating area, and if anybody really needs to be doing a lot, the orang pandek is one thing. If you're going to do that Southeast Asian research, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, this is a great area to do research. There's actually some legit primatologists that are keeping their mind open and hoping to find something down there, and taking reports just to kind of get, doing the correlative study. Like basically all that Sasquatchers have ever done has been doing this correlative study where nobody's drawing correlations from, and then trying to figure out how to apply that to research. We're researching around all this correlative data, specifically where we should be looking at it as a correlative pool of data, trying to decide how we're going to research the correlations. Well, they're doing that. At least a couple guys are doing that in Vietnam and in Laos and in Cambodia, which is really exciting. And I hope that there's a good find, whether it's Bigfoot or whether it's, a relic. It wouldn't be a relic. It'd be a contemporary pongid in the woods that lives on the ground. That would be amazing.
Yes, it would. That would be absolutely what we're looking for, to kind of renew the life of other apes to be found yet in other areas that we're talking about. And so you can really see, people, why we're kind of concentrating on this. I mean, Cliff Brackman has been funding the search for the orang pendek for a number of years now. And, they actually think they're pretty close down there with being able to predict the areas where they'll find tracks. Not necessarily predict the areas where they'll find animals, but they're kind of getting a better clue in as to how they're able to go in and find the tracks themselves. And that's step one.
Step one is to find the tracks, and then to map the tracks, and to find an area, and then you stay within that area, and then you start to do your grid searches from there. But you first have to find reasonable sign, reasonable spore, and then work from there. You can't just say, well, I'm pretty sure they're here because that's what I think. The Reverend Jeff and I make a lot of, postulations about, water sources, this, that, and the other. It's good logic, but there's not a lot of supporting data. So like we say, you take that correlative data, you take, okay, well, this happens a lot in this time, this happens a lot in that time. And then, you take people, even Justin is doing good research, because at least he's looking at what's in the area when he's drawing correlations, and he's trying to figure out how to test against it, even if testing against it is just going out and trying to shoot one. He's trying something. He's going about it in a methodical way.
That's exactly right. What's happened now is at this time of year, we've actually searched the other sides of the mountain where the actual event had, and the other sites that we've had. We've searched them this time of the year, last year, and we found that there wasn't a whole lot of eventful things to go on. So what have we done? We've now found another face of the mountain that parallels the activity levels that we've had and the types of structure that we have on the other face of the mountain, to see whether or not they're in this area in the springtime. That's what this expedition was going to bring into next. Perfect segue into it. The Bigfoot Campout is coming up next week. That is correct. And we're going to go up there and we're going to look at a whole new section that we haven't looked at before. But we've noticed that the altitudes are actually parallel to where we've had activity in the past. So if those are a correlation of altitude to activity, then we should be able to predict at what levels those activities are going to happen. And then we know where to focus in our searches.
Or if nothing else, you could find the same non-Bigfoot related activities, whether it be deer and rodents and, plants and fruits and other things like that on the other side. And then you have a really good idea of what happens in the entire valley area. Okay, research takes a long time. Sometimes it's really boring. Sometimes it takes years to figure out an area. But, you know, looking at one sheer face is kind of like looking at a three-dimensional image, you know, with one eye shut. It just doesn't work. We're binocular visioned 3D primates because we have two eyeballs, you know. So I think it's a good way of looking at things. And if you're not getting the same activity there, maybe it's good to go to the other side.
That's right. Okay, guys. Now the camp out is coming. We still do have a couple of slots open, which means if you are in the area and you'd like to come along, send me an email at sloungepodcast@gmail.com and say, I want to come to the Squatchers Lounge Bigfoot camp out. Right now, we've got about a dozen people still coming into camp. Some people have had to fall out. Other people have come in, and we've still got a few slots open. So send me an email pretty quick, and I will get you the directions and the maps to get there. It is going to be an epic trip. Rain or shine, we're going to be there from next Thursday until Sunday, probably noontime when we head back to town. Now, saying that, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for the show this week, buddy. I mean, we've gone through it. The rock apes of Vietnam are pretty freaky. I'd look into them, and I have a good chance that they're probably out there.
It's one of my favorites, and not just because it's one of the more popular ones. It's just it's right there where you want to see something be there.
That is absolutely correct. What did Chris York say today?
What did he say today?
I'm Chris York of the 40 and Slip, and you're watching two guys try to explain Bigfoot to you.
That's what he said today. Absolutely right. Well, guys, we want to thank everybody for watching the Squatchers Lounge podcast. It is season 3, episode 24, and the Squatchcation is next week. Holy crap, dude. Next Wednesday, David flies in here. I'm not sure whether we're going to do the podcast on Tuesday. We'll talk about that. Keep tuned to the facebook.com/groups/SLounge for the group page and facebook.com/SLounge podcast for the fan page. I still can't believe I don't have 1,000 likes on that page. We're still kind of
we're getting there, but not yet.
Not yet. We'll get there eventually. Facebook has definitely screwed us all. Anyhow, thanks everybody for watching. I'm Reverend Jeff for the Dr. David Backdoor pseudoscientist. We say thanks for watching, and may the Squatch be with you. Pseudoscience. Rock ape, rock ape, rock ape.
I so can't wait to go out and get dirty.
Oh, God. Bigfoot Campfire Stories is out there. There's a new one. Bigfoot throws a boulder at a car. It's awesome. And Bigfoot Docs Uncensored. Check it out on the channel. Me and your old pal Wes.
I'm loving where that one's going.
Monday nights, dude. This week is going to be Sasquatch, the Legend of Bigfoot, based on the Patterson script. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice.
Then we're going camping, bitches.
Whoop.